Sabrina. Welcome back to my channel. I am very excited to share the first update for this year's reading journal. It will be in my Clever Fox notebook, and I'm going to update all the pages plus January, and I'm very excited to show you how I finally mapped out everything. There's going to be, I guess, quite a few changes. I actually really wanted to go back to how I did things in 2020, and I'll kind of share some more pages at my desk. This is my 2020 journal, and I did a stats page, a calendar page, and then I attempted to do a summary for every single book, and I wasn't exactly successful. So I'm hoping this year I can be successful. I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna at least start off the year trying this format. And after I saw Heba's update for her reading journal, I was like, okay, I'm definitely gonna do it. Because I'd already been thinking about, trying out that approach that I had done in 2020. And then I saw Heba's and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. But I'm actually going to do half pages. So I will explain how I'm gonna do everything at my desk setup. But I just wanted to start off by saying that I am so excited to update my reading journal for January. I have lots of different challenge pages to set up and different things like that to set up. When I do a summary page for a book, I'm not sure if I'm going to share every single one. I think I will still continue to do my favorites and show my favorite pages and how they come together and kind of my thoughts on those type of books. So let's go over to my desk and I can kind of give you a better glimpse at what I have planned out for this reading update. Let's dive into how this is going to work for 2024. And since this is definitely a lower price point planner, this kind of also influenced my decision to go back to the 2020 design. I know that if I run out of room, I can definitely afford easily to get another journal. So in 2020, I think this is just a Michael's journal, but you can see it's totally bowed. I have thought about like cutting out the pages at the end, but I just always worry about whether that's going to wreck the binding or not, but maybe I should do that. But anyways, in 2020, I started off, with a stats page, the calendar, and then I did a lot of just the rating for the book covers. And then kind of for my favorites, I would do just a little synopsis of the book. And like this one, I kind of went all out. I think this was actually a scrap lift of a project from Heba. I really wanted to use up some die cuts. So then it moves into February, and you can see I didn't do it necessarily for every single book, just my favorites mainly. But for this year, I really wanted to try to get at least a sentence or two about the books and what I think of the books. Unfortunately, I had a really terrible yellow ink, as you can see, so it's kind of bleeding through all the pages, which that's unfortunate, but it happens. You can see it here. But this one I did a little synopsis, little bullet points of what I liked about the book. And then this is where it kind of, I stopped putting it together, but I was able to finish all the stats pages. So that's October, and then I have November, again with that horrible yellow ink, and then December. So I'm going back to a similar format, and let me show you what that's going to look like. So let me just remind you of the pages that I have before I dive into putting them together. So I have the year of books, and last year, or for I guess many years, I've done really, really tiny size books. This year I'm going with my standard, which is 1 inch wide by 1.5 inches tall. And again, if I need another set of books or this type of page, I can easily make one. I have my goals, my monthly faves. I just measured out the January, and then I will add that in. My stats for each month, the different shelves that I have, and my Goodreads. And I did have a wonderful subscriber point out that I totally forgot 66. No idea how I'm gonna fix that. You know, I might just add in like a really tiny 66 box. That way I don't have to change the numbers for everything, because that would be really tedious, wouldn't it? Then I have library savings, A to Z, the genres, and then the books my friends recommended, and read around the USA, and then rate the romance. And I forgot to add a title, so I'm going to go ahead and add a title. But if you remember from last year, the rate the romance person, she did challenges, and she's not doing them this year, which is totally fine. But I decided that I will basically make kind of shelves of all the books that I'm going to read. So if it's a romance book, I'm just going to add it here and then draw a shelf, and that way I can have documentation of all the different romances that I've read throughout the year. Now we move into January. I had talked about for a while how I felt like now that I'm reading audiobooks that everything felt scrunched. So I wanted to spread out the calendar and have it on both pages, and then not have my cluster of embellishments down here and not necessarily over here. But this way it gives the calendar plenty of room to breathe. I sketched it out. Who knows if it's actually straight, but I tried, you know. So, and I counted out all the boxes, make sure that I had 31. A little space right here to decorate if I want to, but the calendar is going to be 2 pages. Over here is the stats page. I spread it out again onto 2 pages. What follows is the pages that I will use to write out my rating, what book number it is, the genre, my thoughts, and the synopsis, and then quotes. I know it already sounds complicated, but I really don't think it will be, because this year I have been better about taking notes either through my phone or on Goodreads about various books. So I have 2 here, 2 here. This one is going to be a larger book cover, so that's why it says fairy tale. It's going to be a faves, so that'll go right here. And then I have 2 more books, 2 more books. You and a View, that's a favorite book, so that will go there. Another Missing Person, Lore and Olympus, and then the final favorite book is Checkmate. So I think it's going to be really fun to add in all this fun information about the books that I'm reading. Because like even this book, The Lazy Genius, I found so many things to write down and like quotes and ideas, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in there. And then if I don't fill up the total page, no big deal. At least I have a little something, right? I just want to have that documentation of a little something. So that is the breakdown of what I have for January and what I have to start with for this journal. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope you have a project or a craft or a favorite drink, and you are excited to watch me bring this together. All right, let's move into the voiceover portion. I don't know about you, but I am so excited to start working on this journal and getting all the pieces together to fill out each page. I put a lot of the pieces on a cookie sheet tray because that's how I like to organize my projects, especially big ones like this. And then I can also put the books in the order that I read them because that's really helpful, right? I could put them in a random order, but I would prefer to put them in the order I read them. Started off the year with kind of a time travel book, The Good Part, which I'm a little hesitant on time travel books. I don't remember what the book was called, but there was a book that was time travel in New York, and it really just rubbed me the wrong way. But this book did pretty good. I really enjoyed it for the most part. It was good. Now, The Lost Bookshop, that one was just, it felt like it took too long, and I don't know, I didn't connect with it as much as I thought I was going to, despite it being a audiobook. Same thing with The Unmaking of June Farrow. That book took me forever to get through, and I really wanted to finish it. I suppose I could have just tossed it, but I don't know. I kept feeling like, well, maybe it's because I just don't have a lot of time to read. But I finished it, and it was just okay. Now with these boxes, you guys, I'm totally winging it. I do not want to count out the dots and divide things and make it, you know, square and even and basically math out these goals. So I'm just filling in a little bit that I think works, and then I will just proceed that way. I have read 125 books, so I filled in a little bit for 12. I listened to 4 audiobooks, so I filled that in, and then 2 nonfiction books. So filled those in. I skipped my monthly fave because I forgot to print it, but that's okay. I'm now going to fill out the annual stats. So I have 12 books. And then I am going to change one of the categories. I had minutes, and instead I'm going to put hours listened because that's how my app breaks down the stats. So it makes more sense to do that. And so it was 37.8 hours. And then average length, I need to figure that out, and I forgot to figure it out. So I just put 300 to 500. So that's just going to have to work. I then grabbed my 3 library receipts that I saved from the month of January, so that way I could add up the total savings. And I did not get particular, like this is a book my daughter checked out, this is a book I checked out. I just added up the receipts and called it amazing, because it was amazing. It was nearly $500, so it was $475.75. So that is really amazing. And I still have not thought of a category for the last row, and I'm not sure if you guys have any suggestions for the last row and what I could potentially add there. I'd love your input. So I grabbed my extra dot grid paper and I just wrote out hours listened and covered it up over the stats. And I think that's all I have to do for this page. I finished it up. So as you can see, this particular notebook, it does do some bleed through. So I had to make the tough decision, at least for me, to instead of using markers, to go ahead and use colored pencils. So you'll see more of what I'm talking about in a second, because I decided I can't use those and I need to redo the books. So I had to stamp them on paper, and then I will cut them out and fill them in with colored pencils. But I had a really good month for reading. It was 12 total books, and that took up 1 shelf and then a start of another shelf. And I had a pretty good mix of genres and different books that I read, including 2 nonfiction books, which was really exciting. I'm definitely hoping to read and listen to more nonfiction. I don't know about you, but for me, listening to nonfiction is much better for me. I feel like I really am able to connect and actually finish nonfiction books by listening to them. Okay, so you can see that I've colored it in with markers, and I did not like the bleed through, so I'm just going to go ahead and use colored pencils. Once again, I used my extra dot grid paper, stamped the books, and then went ahead and wrote out the book titles, and then I will fill them in with colored pencil. I mean, this is my first time using this notebook, so it's kind of trial and error. I think that's how it goes. Trial and error to figure out how things are going to work. I'm sure I could use colored, markers if I wanted to, but I don't know. The bleed through just kind of bugs me too much when it's really noticeable, and I felt like it was with the brown. And if I am going to go forward with coloring in all of these books, which is something that I do want to do this year, then I definitely need to make a decision now on how I'm going to color in the books. And I'm going to try to stick to the colors that are in the different stickers and die cuts that I used, so that way it coordinates and goes well together. So just finished cutting out all of the books, and now I can grab the colored pencils and color it in. I'm going with a really light brown, or actually just coloring it in very lightly, and that way it's not too dark. And then of course there's the spines that you can color in too, so I went ahead and colored those in as well. So it's fun to be able to color your journal. It makes me feel like a little kid again. and I write down the book titles based on the length of the book. So like one of my books was a romance book that was like 500 pages called Love Redesigned. So I put that book on a really chunky book. So I kind of like to match it that way. One of the books that I redid, I put it upside down. So I just had to fix that. That was a thriller called Just Another Missing Person. I think a lot of people really enjoyed that. For me, it was just okay. There was a lot of things going on in there, and I don't know. It was just okay for me. After I get the shelves done, I can go ahead and move on to the Goodreads challenge. And again, I will probably just go ahead and add in a very small 66 box, so that way I can not worry about having to fix every single number, because that wouldn't make sense, would it? I chose a really pretty blue color for January, and then I can just fill in all the way up to number 12. And so I'd love to know how many books you guys read in January to start off this year. It's so fun to continue reading and continue sharing these videos with you. I love sharing them with you. I think the next page is the library savings, and I am just going to fill that in with the receipts, but you guys already kind of saw that with the stats page, so I don't really have to show you again. I'm just going to flip to it really quick, and I just did 1, 2, 3, and then equals the total number, and that's it. Okay, next up is A to Z, and I always like to pick books that really resonated with me for this. So I did C, Check and Mate. F is The Fairy Tale Life of Dorothy Gale. L is Lazy Genius Way. And then Y is You with a View. So I wound up with 4 books out of the 26, so that is really fantastic. This year, I also simplified the genres. And so I'm just selecting, I think, 12 that I want to do or keep track of. And I got out my iPad, which I had all the stats on, and I looked at the book and decided, what category does this fit best? I also have a book by a person of color, and that is something that I need to check, or I know now that I need to check before I start filling in my stats for, say, February. I had 2 favorites, 3 romances, 2 nonfictions, and then 2 fantasies. So like I said earlier, it was a good mix. For 12 books and 12 friends, I have 2 books that I finished. A Little Magic, I finished that at the end of December, but I'm going to go ahead and count it for this year. And then Everybody in My Family Has Killed Someone was recommended to me by a friend named Tracy. And so I stamped my rating and filled it in with a colored pencil. For this challenge, I thought about doing the June Farrow books. I think that was in North Carolina. But in the end, I went with You with a View because it's a traveling book and I loved it. And so I'm just going with that. I also decided to just write January and the rating, trying to make things a little bit simpler for me and not have to get out all my supplies and stamps every time that I want to put together a page. And you saw that I was having trouble turning that page because of the flip out, but I got it turned. I got this really cute stamp set from Kerri, Bradford. I don't know if it's gone again. I don't know, but I will link it in the description box in case you guys want to grab it. But it's a really pretty, easy font to read, and I can stamp out all the romance and then fill it in with a colored pencil. I always like to stamp starting in the center where the spine is and then work my way out from there. So I stamp the, and then all, and then romance. Then I can add in all the book covers of the various romances. I will say that I did read a young adult book called Check and Mate, and that was about teenagers in love, and I don't know. I didn't want to put a teen romance on this page, so I just went with more adult romance books, which works for me. That makes the most sense for me. And you will notice that I did use a marker here because it was a very light pink, and I tried to go really light with my brush strokes. I guess that's what it is, filling it in. So that's why I used a marker there. Okay,
Not that you guys want me to keep talking about my debate, but if you ever use a Clever Fox journal, I just want you guys to be aware of the bleed through if you decide to use that type of journal. But to me, so far, it is definitely worth it for the price point, because like for the year of books, I'm going to make my covers bigger. For this particular page, I made it a lot bigger. It just gives me more room if I want to have a second journal for the second part of the year. Okay, I finished up the romance. There was 4 books, and then now I can move on to the calendar page and filling that in. I kept the size of my calendar boxes the same as I did last year, but this year, I don't know. So far, I'm not changing up too much with the calendar. I don't know. I just didn't want to overcomplicate things for myself and try to come up with a new system for a calendar, since I already came up with a new system for my stats. So the calendar is going to pretty much stay the same. It's just taking up 2 pages. And I did notice that there's nowhere that I really left a space for the total number of books on this front page. So I might include that somewhere on it for next month, because I feel like that's important, because I don't know if I wound up putting that on my stats page either. So that's kind of, again, trying to figure things out as I go, like month by month. And you'll see it again too when I make a mistake with drawing lines for the paper, Kindle, and audio. And you know me, I'm all about, like, I'll show you the mistakes that I made, because everything doesn't always go the way you plan, right? So you just got to pivot. Isn't that like from a friend show or something? You just got to pivot and figure out a way to make it work, right? Or I suppose you could just give up, but I'd rather not give up. I'd rather just try to figure out a way to just keep on trucking. All right, so I've got the calendar all done, and I've got the lines erased. And again, I'm just going to write out Monday through Sunday and do it myself, which I think I did that all last year. And then what I do is I pick a marker and I make a small dot in the upper right-hand corner. And then I will use my Sharpie pen to go ahead and write the dates. Super simple, super easy way to just fill in the calendar without having to get out a bunch of stamps and a bunch of equipment to just fill in a calendar. And I also, like I mentioned earlier, I do have my iPad next to me, so that way I have all the different stats. I took screenshots of my Goodreads books for the months, so that way I know what dates I read it, and I also took screenshots of my Storygraph stats, so that way it's all on my iPad and I can look at it as I am working on putting these pages together. I used an Ali Edwards stamp for the month January because I don't want to have to stamp out individual letters. Then I grabbed some Syncopation design stamps. I think this is the page turner. I have, or one of the stamps says, let's recap. So I went ahead and included that. I also stamped read more. And then I'm also going to stamp some glasses and a pattern of books. And later on, I will color those in. Something really fun I did to figure out my color scheme for January is I actually went to Pinterest and I typed in January color scheme. And I found some really great options for January. Lots of bright colors, but I didn't really want to go bright. I wanted to go more winter. So I found this one that included some purples and a little bit of green and blue. So that is what I went with, and I love the color scheme. So on the first day of the year, I finished The Good Part, which was kind of that time travel book. And then the next day, I actually finished 2 books, The Lazy Genius Way and Same Time Next Year, the novella that everybody was talking about. So I guess the only thing I really did change about my calendar is that I'm writing the book on the day that I finish it. So like the Fairy Tale Life of Dorothy Gale, I finished on the 5th. So I drew the line to the 2nd where I started it. So that's really the only thing I changed. And like the Lost Bookshop, I finished that on the 7th, so I drew a line back to the 4th. After that, I listened to a nonfiction about a Christian speaker, Beth Moore, I believe, and that was called All My Knotted Up Life. Someone recommended that to me, or I heard about that book, and then I decided to listen to it. And then I remembered, I was like, how did I stumble upon this book? I don't know. Somehow I did. It was on my to be read list, and I just decided to listen to it, and I found it pretty interesting. So that's what I'm saying about memoirs. They are just really interesting and really captivating me right now. The entire second week of January, I spent tackling Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. That one was another book that was just okay for me. I felt like it dragged just a little bit, and I didn't find myself making time to read. For me, that's a good gauge on whether or not the book is interesting or not, if I make time to read, especially, in this busy season of life. Do I make time? And if I don't, then I know it's probably not like a great book. The next book that I spent a while on was The Unmaking of June Farrow, and that, like I said, that one was just meh. It was okay. I did spend a while on The You with a View, but that's only because I didn't have a lot of time to read that particular week, but it was a fantastic book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I finished up the month with an audio called Just Another Missing Person, and on the 30th, I finished up Check and Mate, the latest book from, oh boy, her name's going to escape my head, but I loved it. I loved how it was a whole teen romance set in the world of chess. I just thought that was so cool. Such a cool concept. So this is where I got out my colored pencils, and I am going to color in the books. I tried to do a repeating pattern with the books, and I think it looks okay. I want to figure out, I do want to figure out a way to make this page, I don't know. It felt like there was a lot of white space on this page. I think next month I might doodle a border around the outside of the pages. I'm not sure. Any suggestions? I would love to hear the suggestions. But I loved coloring in with the colored pencils, and I loved just having a little bit of space down at the bottom to fill in some stamped images. So once I have that done, I can move on to the stats page. I also may go back and highlight audio versus books, because that's something I do like to be able to quickly tell from just looking at my calendar. So again, just figuring out the process as I go. I am almost done filling in these books. There's a little star in the middle of the cover, so there's a few pieces to color with each of these, and I love the little stamped book right there, and made for a fun little border down at the bottom and up at the top. So calendar is done. Now I can move on to the stats page. Now, in the beginning, I kind of showed you what this looks like, but I didn't explain anything. I didn't want to give the secret away of how I planned this, but I have lots of different sections. And basically, I took most of the story graph stats and I just put them on this page and kind of spread everything out. So that way it was 2 pages. And I also left a spot for a favorite book. So what I'm starting with is the outlining. I did everything in pencils just so I could see how it would look. There's no way that I could do things in pen first. There's just no way. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to have the pie chart with the 6 different emotions. I also wanted to do a smaller bar graph with fiction versus nonfiction. I will still keep the special categories. I'm going to also do a bar graph for my average rating, and then I'll have a kind of bigger section for the total number of pages, and then some genres. And later on, I will figure out that I did not include hours listened, so I will include that as well. So it's going to be lots of fun with all these different stats. And again, I do need to find a spot where I can put the total number of books read. Of course, looking at it, you could totally add it up, but I want it to be obvious. Let's put it that way. So I have my little pie chart, and I think it's a 2-inch circle, and I had to scoot it over just a little bit so that way it was more centered over the 6 boxes for the emotion that it represents. I then want to grab an alpha stamp and figure out where I can put that. I do know when I was putting down the alpha that it almost touched the top edge. So if there's a way that I can scoot everything down just a little bit for next month, I will probably try that. I start off by drawing a line. Well, no, actually I start by grabbing a letter J and seeing how close it's going to get to the top and where I need to place it. So I figure out where I'm going to place it, and then I draw a line so that way it hopefully keeps me straight. I don't think it worked very well this time because I was not paying attention. But this is an Allie Edwards stamp set, and I just stamped Jan Stats. And I think for every month going forward, I might use a different stamped alpha, depending on my mood, I guess. Last year, I used the same Kerri Bradford stamp throughout. So this year, I just felt like changing things up, I guess. Okay, so now I have Jan Stats all written down, and I have my book cover for the favorite book, You with a View. So I think now this book is in like 3 or 4 different spots, but I'm totally okay with that. I don't know if I'm going to put much in this section next to the book since I am going to review the book, but I'm going to go ahead and just stamp favorite. And that makes it pretty obvious that it is a favorite book because it was such a wonderful book. And actually it took me a month or 2 months to get to actually reading it. Because I always have books to read, but I'm so glad that I was able to hold on to this book from the library and get a chance to read it and not have to return it. I feel like so many books I just can't put on hold or renew them. That's the word, renew them, which is always frustrating. You're like, dang it, I didn't get to that book. Dang it. That's happening a lot. Like right now I am reading 7-Year Slip. I think that's what it's called. It's a really popular book. It was recommended to me and is in my 12 Friends challenge, but I think I'm almost out of time for reading that book. So that's the book that I am reading right now. I'm also trying to read the fan fiction Manacled book. I think I'm saying that right, but it's the one that's 1,000 pages or something like that. And then the audio book I'm listening to is a parenting book. So I'd love to know what you guys are reading. I always love when you guys share what you are reading. I'm now going to fill in the pie chart. I used my pencil board from my Hobonichi to help me fill it in. I started off with a really pretty green color, and then I went and used a purple. I think I wound up using 2 blue colors. Well, I did use 2 blue colors, and I thought the shades of them were a little farther apart, but they're not. They're kind of similar, but that's okay. I did think that I was going to use a green, and I even think I mentioned that earlier that I was using a green, but I wind up not liking the green color. Like it's way too olivey, and it is that a word? I don't know, but it is now. It was just too much. It took away from the spread more than anything. So then I tried to cover it up with a darker green, and then it just looked like a mess. So I'm going to have to get my dot grid paper and go ahead and cover that up because it just wasn't going to work with the spread that I have. It's just not going to work. So I cut a little sliver, and then I grab my what is it called? The die cut for the pie chart. I just grab that so that way I can make the rounded edge easily. And then I can go ahead and color it a purple color. And each of these sections is also going to have a square box down below that will be filled in with the matching color. That way I can fill in which emotion it is. And then the last big chunk, so going clockwise, is the other category, because I think Storygraph breaks your books down into, I don't even know how many emotions. There's a lot of different emotions. But the biggest one for me this month was emotional, then it was lighthearted, then it was funny, reflective, mysterious. So emotional is the one that I usually get, so that was no big surprise to me to see that. So my camera cut out a little bit and you missed me finishing up coloring in my pie chart and also outlining a few of the words for the spread. So you didn't really miss anything, but I got my camera back on and now I can start to figure out what the categories are, which I decided on took too long, loved, and for a challenge. I know, I told you guys I was going to make a list of special categories and then I totally forgot. I still want to do that. That way I don't have to like stumble my way through picking those special categories and then not come up with any good ones. So again, if you have any suggestions for special categories, I will take them. I do want to, for like the month of March, I know that I'm going to keep track of any books that I stayed up late at night to read, and that would be a fun little category. Right now, I'm making the bar graph to represent my average rating. Now, the bar graph started at 3.75 and went up in increments of 1/4 of an inch or 1/4 of a decimal. I don't know. It went up by 1/4. And so I just copied it as best as I could to represent how I basically rated the books. I only gave one book a 5-star rating, and I think that that was You with a View. And I did give 2 with a 4.5 and 3 with a 4.25 and 4 books with a 4-star rating. I think I've mentioned this before, but I do a lot of research before I start reading a book to make sure that it has good ratings, generally above 3.75, just because I feel like that gives me a good baseline for picking a good book and a book that I am not likely to put in the do not finish pile. But I will say this year I'm following along with what Stephanie Howell did and not picking books or trying to pick books that I have not read a review. I already did my first one called The Burnout, which was kind of a romance, and it was all right. It was pretty good. I have 2 other books that I have recently checked out that I did not read the reviews, so I'm excited to read those, and I don't even go on Goodreads to look them up or add them to my list, my to be read list. So it's a complete surprise. So I'm really enjoying trying it kind of like the old school way, just picking up a book, you like it, you like what it says on the jacket, the synopsis, and going from there. Okay, so I filled in the genres: mystery, fantasy, young adult, magical realism, religion, nonfiction, graphic novel. Now I am filling in the fiction and nonfiction. And again, I thought about counting each of the dots, and I had 22 dots. If I had done 24 dots, it would have worked out perfect. So then I would have been able to divide it up perfectly, because I had 12 books, 24 dots. Each book could take 2 dots. Well, it didn't work out that way. So I just, filled in most of it with a green color for fiction and a little bit for the 2 nonfiction that I read. Okay, I am trying to stamp paper, and I realize that this number that I picked from the Kerri Bradford stamp set is not going to work. I'm like thinking about it. What am I going to do? I decided to get out that extra grid paper and just go ahead and use it. Hopefully when I take photos of this, you won't be able to notice, but I wanted to use this stamp set and I had to figure out a workaround. I could use my jelly roll pen, but that doesn't always work and you can't really stamp over that. So the next best thing is grid paper. And for the most part, I don't think you can tell that I goofed on this, but knowing now going forward, I will stamp the number, whatever number I choose, right below the writing of paper, and then I will draw the line. So live and learn, right? Trial and error. That's what I've been saying with this first setup. So I read 6 paper books, 2 Kindle books, and 4 on audio. So most of the books I read. Now for the categories, I had Took Too Long was 3 books. I know that The Unmaking of June Farrow took too long, and Just Another Missing Person took too long. And I don't remember what the other one was that I said took too long, but there was quite a few that I felt took too long. I really enjoyed and loved 3 books, which will be my favorite books for this month. The Fairy Tale Life of Dorothy Gale is a retelling of Wizard of Oz set in Ireland, and that was fantastic. I absolutely just loved it. I loved the cast of characters. I loved everything. Now for the average rating, I had to add an extra piece of paper on top of that as well so I could fit the rating, which was 4.15. And I just love this stamp set. I can't get enough of it because, again, it is a fantastic number set to color in if you wanted to. And I just love it. I'm so glad that I got it, and I definitely feel like I need more alpha stamp sets in my life. Total pages read was 4,580. I do want to add in the hours listened, so I put that right below the genres, and I will stamp that out. I think on the hours listened, I did stamp the numbers first, so then I could write the line. So see, I learned my lesson. Total hours listened was 37 hours and 37.98 hours. So almost 38 hours in total. So really great way to start the year with some great reading. Now, I felt like the space up where the favorite book was kind of too much white space. I don't know, you guys. It was just bothering me. So I decided to add in the rating. It's 5 stars, and I'm just going to call it done. It looks fantastic to me. I love the color scheme, and I truly hope that you guys have enjoyed seeing it come together.
Okay, I appreciate you guys sticking with me. I know it was maybe a little bit of a longer video, but I thoroughly appreciate you guys sticking with me. And I had a lot of fun putting together the update for my reading journal. I'd love a thumbs up or a subscribe if you are new to my channel. Hope you have a wonderful day.